Hello, I'm Claire Davis, as you know, for Mental Health Chats, and today we're continuing the topic on sexual assault. And today we've got 𝗍𝗶𝘆𝗀𝗀 with us to tell his story. So hello, Derek, how are you?
Hi, Claire, I'm fine, thank you. Yourself?
I'm very well, thank you. So Derek's going to continue the topic on sexual assault. So Derek, can you just briefly explain the situation of what happened to us all, please?
Yeah, it obviously goes a long way back. I'm now 57-year-old, and my first abuse from a football coach by the name of George Ormond happened when I was 11-year-old. So some 46 years ago, I had my first counter of obviously sexual abuse on me. George Ormond was a football coach at a boys' club I used to attend in Newcastle called Montague and North Fenham. He was a young man at the time himself. He's only about 20-year-old, but obviously I was 11-year-old. And my first encounter was getting treatment from George Ormond, and then he sort of moved on to touch my genitals, of which I became very, very anxious and didn't really know what was happening. And I basically froze. It was in a locked room. I managed to get out of the room, but was feared, didn't want to say anything. This abuse lasted ultimately about 5 years, till the age of 16, and I left the boys' club and went to play professiontional football at Newcastle United as a young apprentice, and managed to play a few first-team games before injury curtailed my career as a professional footballer. I only made a small number of appearances. But the length of the abuse over the 5 years accumulated from just basic touching, feeling. It then encountered, he used to take me home. But main point of view is he groomed my family. My dad was a quite isolated man, and he took over the father figure of taking me to training, pick me up, take me to school, befriended the family, got into my mum and dad, and eventually got into my home. And yeah,
it's terrible. And I've read a few articles on this. You weren't the only boy he was doing this to. It was a number of the boys from the club.
Yeah, that's the thing at the time. You just feel that you're the only one. I suffered this abuse again, quite intimate. He used to stop over at my parents' house at times. My brother used to be out. We used to share a room, and when my brother was out, he used to stop over and make an excuse. His car didn't work and stuff like that. But I couldn't tell anybody because I thought I was the only one. I thought he was only picked me out, but he made threats for me to commit offences on him and sexual acts on myself. The threats were that he wouldn't play me in the team, of which I was, at the time, didn't know I had a talent, but I was 14-year-old when I signed for Newcastle United, and on a schoolboy form. But he used to tell the scouts that if I didn't play well or didn't perform these sexual acts on him, then he would not play me in the side. So as a young boy, my ultimate goal was to be a professional footballer.
Yeah.
So I was stuck in a rock and a hard spot. I knew the abuse was not right, but I just tried to take it out of my mind once it was happening. But the fear was I couldn't tell anybody. I couldn't go to my parents because he had befriended them, he had groomed them. As I say, my mother thought he was a father figure. My brother, I couldn't tell. And then my friends, I couldn't tell them. It was very male-orientated sport at that time, and still is to some extent today. And I didn't know where to turn to. So I just kept quiet and just thought, well, it'll get over. Unfortunately, it didn't get over and lasted accumulation of 5 years. It went to court in 2002, but there was hundreds of offences over that period of time.
Really? And how did that impact your life, Derek?
When I left the boys' club at 16-year-old, I joined Newcastle United, and I thought, I've lived my dream. I managed to play for the first team and live my dream. But it was only then that the real impact of what had been done to me started to kick in. And I was becoming my behaviour was very erratic. In my late teens and early 20s. I didn't know why at the time. I was drinking a lot, and I was very, very angry inside. I was having nightmares, daily nightmares every night, waking up sweating, shaking, until, some years later that after 3 broken marriages, I had been in drink, and in 1994 I was actually sectioned under the Mental Health Act in the UK, section 2, which means that you are put in your mental institution for your own safety and that of others. The reason behind that was that I had tried 3 times to take my own life. And that was on the last occasion when I went into the garage. I taped a car up, put exhaust pipe through into the windows and started the engine and allowed petrol fumes to come into the car. It was lucky for myself. My brother lived a few doors along at that time, and I had a mobile phone, and I managed to call him, and he knew I was in a desperate situation. I woke up with paramedics around me, getting the oxygen into my blood, and it was then in 1994 I was sectioned under the Mental Health Act. Some 25, 26 years later from the end of the abuse, I finally was managed to try and confront the situation.
Yep. So how have you resolved this over the years? Because you're an amazing man now. You're actually delivering safeguarding training at football clubs, in schools for these young people. So how have you managed to resolve this?
Yeah, when I was released from being under Section 2, and I was released after about 4 months from hospital, and I had to go on to a CPT course, cognitive behavior therapy course. That lasted, and I've had CBT on and off for about the last 18 years now. Some of it was good, I must admit. Some of it was very good. Some of it I didn't quite enjoy, the group therapy and part of CBT. I'm more personal. So over the years, I've managed to cope by using the tools that I have when I do feel anxious and I do feel depressed and I do feel down. I keep turning back to say, well, it was not my fault. The abuse happened, but it was not my fault. So I use my cope mechanisms. Unfortunately, I've been on medication for the last, say, 18 years, and I take that daily. I'm on 𝗁𝗵𝗃𝗀𝗃𝗃𝗃. I take that daily, and it helps me. It helps me in a way to carry on a normal life as such. So yes, it has had some after effects on myself, that I'm still on medication. I still see a counsellor now and then when I do feel down. I think there's any shame in that.
No.
You know, admitting that, you know, I probably won't ever get closure on George Ormond and what he did to me. But I'm learning to live and cope with it. I think, and yes, as you say, because I'm quite passionate about safeguarding and mental health. I, over the years, have learned a lot about safeguarding and a lot about mental health, but I wanted to learn a little bit more. So I am now a fully qualified safeguarding trainer in level 1, advanced and designated lead, of which our company, 𝗁𝗵𝗃𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀, myself and my business partner, Justine Carroll, actually trained me up. And we are now fully qualified trainers delivering safeguarding training to the care industry, to football clubs, to schools. We have our own bespoke training. And I'm also a fully qualified mental health first aid instructor through Mental Health England. So I've managed to turn a negative sort of subject, if you like, and very dark subject into something that I'm passionate about and I enjoy. And we obviously deliver this training to make sure that kids or adults in future recognize the symptoms and signs of mental health, but also to make sure that safeguarding is top of the list when you're dealing with sport or the care industry or in schools.
Very, very important. And I'm going to put the link to your company with Justine Carroll.
Yeah, that'd be good. Thank you.
In the notes. So thank you very much for your honesty. I'm actually also going to include the link to an article I found on the cases, because George Ormond didn't actually go fully to court until 2018, did he?
He was I went to court with George Ormond in 2002.
Right, okay.
Yeah, if you look, I actually tape recorded him at his home. Yeah, you can maybe put something on there if you have a look at 2002. I went to court in 2002, but I did not waive my anonymity. I didn't feel it was necessary, and I wasn't in a very good place mentally to deal with the publicity at the time. And then in 2018, the footballers, ex-footballers, start speaking out about their abuse. So I thought time that I waived my anonymity, and in 2002 he got 7 years jail sentence. I think of 18 assaults, sexual assaults. But in 2018 there was 38 witnesses and victims, and he was given a sentence of 20 years in 2018.
Yeah, so that's the article I've got from 2018 from The Guardian. And I would like to just quote what the judge said from this case, because I think this is quite pertinent. He said, some victims you do not even remember. So this was to George. What was for you a momentary sexual gratification is for your victims a lifetime of difficulty. And what we need to understand is that anybody who has been sexually assaulted, and Derek has told us his story and how it's affected him throughout his life, it is a lifetime of difficulty, and we need to support people in this situation. So we are continuing the topic of sexual assault. It's a very, very sensitive topic, and our next guest, my next guest, is a lady called Liz Walton, And she'll be talking about how she's finally found peace in her life after 10 years of sexual assault as a child. So thank you very much, Derek, for opening up. I'm going to put the link to your website.
Yeah, it's been my pleasure. Anytime.
Thank you. And also the link to the article. You've been absolutely wonderful. So thank you and take care.
No problem. Thank you. Thank you, Claire. Hope everything's well for you.